Howdy folks. Well, after my last little video, I was having a discussion with my stepson, and he said, well, of course the 7.62 NATO will not effectively penetrate a cinder block that's just sitting there because it knocks the block back and absorbs energy. However, government testing has conclusively proven that the 7.62 NATO fired at a cinder block wall will effectively penetrate the cinder block wall, because the cinder blocks are held in place and therefore the bullet can pass right through them. Yeah, right. So I don't like having arguments. I like to simply prove things. So what I've done was I've taken a cinder block here, I've wrapped it in steel wire to simulate the compression in a wall so it just can't expand as much as it wants. Then we're going to put a weight on top of it to keep it from moving backward. And that's about as close I think I can get to simulating a cinder block in a cinder block wall without actually building a cinder block wall. While we're out here, we're also going to have some fun, shoot a few other things, etc. My theory is that when the bullet penetrates the first side of the cinder block, it fragments substantially, loses a lot of energy, and therefore when it hits the second side of the cinder block, whatever's left of it, it's not going to have any penetrating capability. But I've got some tests set up so that we can actually try and capture whatever comes through that first part of the cinder block to see what it is. We also got this backboard here. We got a lot of these pieces of paper, and we're going to change them between each test to see what actually goes through the target and hits the paper, because we're going to be doing stuff like shooting some steel and everything too. Again, I think when it penetrates steel, it pretty much vaporizes the bullet, but we'll see. Anyhow, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have some fun, and we're going to set things up and get back to you. Okay, so here is the setup. At the very bottom, we have a cinder block sitting on a tarps to catch the fragments. In front of the cinder block are two metal plates. They're just laying there to indicate any movement. On top of it are 4 cinder blocks in a milk crate to provide sufficient weight both for compression and to keep it from shifting backwards. Behind it is the backboard with the paper on it. And then above it is my standard target stand with some targets so I can make sure I know where the bullets are hitting before I attempt the test. I find it very amusing to look at these websites where they're shooting at targets and they can't hit the damn things. So that's to make sure I hit the damn thing. Well, let's get proned out and ready to go.
Is there anything in there? Alright, I can't really see what you're doing.
I just pointed down here.
Oh yeah, but I mean the sun is...
There
okay.
is the jacket of the bullet. What's left of it. And so that's what apparently happens. The bullet hits, mostly disintegrates, and the jacket from the back of the bullet hits the forward part, the next layer, and falls down. There's essentially, and I mean essentially, no damage to the paper whatsoever.
Okay, I'm not seeing this essentially thing at all. I mean,
I can
Yeah.
see one little,
no, that's just crud on the paper. I
or
don't think,
maybe a couple little cuts there
No.
at the worst.
I would think there is no damage to the paper.
Now, let's do the same thing with just an empty cinder block. Go ahead and set the camera back on the tripod.
Well, now you're just shooting stuff to shoot stuff.
Well, yeah. No containment. You can see it's been obliterated. One chunk hit the back here, that chunk there. But again, nothing of any consequence whatsoever. And let's see if we can find any bullet fragments. Let's rock.
I think it just vaporized.
Well, I don't see anything, but the next test is going to be a little more trial to just find the bullet fragment. Okay, now here's the next setup. We've got a single layer of cinder block here. Directly behind it, we have a bunch of water jugs. The idea being is I'm going to try and hit the first one and see whatever comes through that cinder block can be caught in the water jugs or on top of that tarp. The backboard is basically there just to keep fragments in. As a matter of fact, I may just turn it around so we don't have to worry about the paper. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the one that was center back. Something hit this one on the side.
Shrapnel would
Looks about like the same thing, so it's probably the same piece. And there it is.
Yeah.
There's the jacket right there. Hold that. And that's what we have. A completely eviscerated jacket and a couple of pieces of lead. That's after only penetrating a single layer of cinder block that completely demolishes the bullet, leaving just the jacket. That's what smacks the back one, I bet you. That and these fragments in tight formation. Okay, now we're going to use the 7.62 to punch holes in steel. Now I know it'll do this. That's a 1/4 inch hot rolled steel, and it should punch a hole through there very easily. However, what comes out the hole is the question. So I have this backboard here to get some kind of an idea of what kind of shrapnel pattern actually hits there. Now we'll see if I'm good enough to hit just that 1/4 inch steel plate without hitting the target stand too and complicating the issue. We shall see. Okay, let's see what we got here. First of all, we got a nice neat hole in the steel plate. It looks like that's the impact side.
This is the
That's the ejection side.
I don't think so.
You think? Oh, we need to mark the next one. Okay.
Peeled off the copper. You want me to move this
Nothing
back?
hit anything else.
But look what you got here. You got a hole.
The backboard, we have at least 2 major impacts and a lot of minor impacts. That's unusual. I didn't expect this.
I did. Well,
Two major impacts?
No, I expected one larger one to look like this. But
Yeah.
that's the slug, and that's the copper jacket.
I don't know. Okay. So we got a very interesting result.
There's chunks of metal stuck in the paper.
Yep. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do like we did before. We're going to set up the water jugs and do the same thing in front of water jugs and see what happens. Here's what's left. Nice, perfect shot. This one's obliterated. This is obviously one directly behind. See a nice clean hole there. A little bit of shrapnel there. Some little metal flakes there. That jug is untouched. The board is relatively untouched, although I don't recall those right there.
Right here.
There we have some fragments there. There we have fragments there. And nothing there. Okay.
Check this out. I was right. It is the ragged copper part that's the front.
Yeah, and it does make the more raggedy thing in front. So there is the front side. There is the back side. And now, let's see what kind of fragments we got. That looks like a piece of steel to me. It sure ain't lead.
Yeah, that's a divot that got punched out of the steel.
That's the far side. Apparently there's like an explosion and the far side of the steel expands out and peels off.
Talk about fire formed. That's exactly what that is.
Basically like that. Sweet. And let's see what we got in this one. Oh, there's the bullet. And there is the bullet. There's your jacket in two pieces and little fragments of lead or steel. That's steel. That's way too hard to be lead.
So on the other one, the last one you shot, through the steel into the paper, it was the divot, it was the chunk of steel that made the round hole and the shredded bullet that made the shrapnel holes.
Would make sense. And since the dome probably comes off asymmetrically, that's why it was off axis while the ragged hole was behind it.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to shoot a cinder block with a 44 Magnum. I'm using two just because at 40 yards I'm not the most reliable shot with a 44, but I should be able to hit the top one without a problem. It just gives me a little more slack. So anyhow, this is a 44 Magnum, 258 grain projectile at about 1,300 feet per second. A bigger, slower round. Let's see what we got here.
That's where the block hit it.
That looks like a piece of block.
Same here, there's no hole.
I agree, that's a chunk of block.
Any holes.
Yeah, I don't see a hole per se.
If you put it back together, you might be missing a chunk of block.
Yeah, just pulverized. see if we can find the bullet.
Yeah, 44 Magnum is a big chunk of lead to just disappear.
There it is.
This looks better.
So that's what's left of it. Again, no effective penetration at all. Cinder block walls are pretty good, but they're awfully hard to carry as a vest.
Yeah, apparently you really don't want to hide behind mild steel.
I also found the jacket of the 44 right there. Just peels the jacket back, lead comes out. Stayed in a better chunk. If you only had a single layer thick, this would probably penetrate better than the 7.62 NATO, but neither one's very good. So there you have it. In my opinion, the 7.62 NATO full metal jacket is completely ineffective against cinder blocks, and so is the 44 Magnum revolver. However, if you had armor piercing, it would probably do okay, because then the bullet would stay together and get through the second layer. On the other hand, 1/4 inch mild steel plate, not a good idea to be behind. Looks like that would ruin your whole week. So there you go, D. If you think you can prove me wrong, send me the video, but as far as I'm concerned, I win.